Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. This morning we're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam. Canto 4. Chapter 25, text 32. Narada Uvacha Itam Puranjanam Nari Yachamana Madhirava Abhyanandatam Viram Asanti Vira Mohita Narada Uvacha Itam Puranjanam Nari Yachamanam Madhirava Abhyananda Tatam Viram Asanti Vira Mohita Narada Uvacha Itam Puranjanam Nari Yachamanam Madhirava Abhyananda Tatam Viram Asanti Vira Mohita. Word to Narada Uvacha. The great sage Narada continued to speak. Itam, upon this, Puranjanam, unto Puranjana, Nari, the woman, Yachamanam, begging, Viravat, being too impatient, Abhyanandata, she addressed him, Viram, the hero, Asanti, smiling, Hira, oh hero, uh, being attracted by him. Translation. Narada continued, my dear king, when Puranjana became so attracted and impatient to touch the girl and enjoy it, the girl also became attracted by his words and accepted his request by smiling. By this time, she was certainly attracted by the king. Purport. By this incident, we can understand when a man is aggressive and begins to woo, the woman becomes attracted to the man. This process is described in the Bhagavatam 558 as Pumsam Striya Niti Bhavamitam. This attraction is enacted on the platform sexually. Thus, the sex impulse is the platform of material engagement. This conditional life, the platform of material sense enjoyment, is the cause of forgetfulness of spiritual life. In this way, a living entity's original Krishna consciousness becomes covered or converted into material consciousness. Thus, one engages in the business of sense gratification. Narada Ubachaki Kampuran. Abhinandata Kambiram Hasantigiram Mukta. Narada continued, my dear king, when Puranjana became so attracted and impatient to touch the girl and enjoy her, the girl also became attracted by his words, accepted his request by smiling. By this time, she was certainly attracted by the king. So, Narada Muni, as the translation reads, he is continuing to use this story of the King Puranjana, which, as I described it, another, and the living entity, it's an allegorical story in comparison to the living entity trying to enjoy in the material world. And of course, the woman, Nari, who King Puranjana is very attracted to, is none other than a representation of the material entity, living entity trying to enjoy the material entity. Now, that attraction is there originally in King Puranjana, and then he approached Nari, and he also reciprocated. So, what came first, the Maya attracting the living entity, or the living entity attracted to Maya? Actually, it is the living entity original desire to enjoy the. So what came first, the living entity? Just in this example given here, and he was first attracted to her. Later on, she reciprocated in that attraction. I think this is a whole word, you know, read this word. Woo. He began to woo her. Began to woo her. So he was attracted. So the living entity's original desire is to enjoy separately from Krishna. Krishna expands his energy and expands to the Maya, the filth. So because of that original desire to enjoy, that attraction to enjoy, it's the living entity that is approaching Maya, and then Maya reciprocates. If one wants to, of course, Maya is none other than spiritual energy transformed. But when the living entity has a certain desire separate from Krishna, then she reciprocates in kind. And yesterday we were talking about, well, actually the verse was saying that he became attracted to all her features. Your face is so beautiful, nice eyebrows, eyes, pupils of the eye, bluish hair scattered about, and you're speaking so sweet sounds are coming from your mouth. You're speaking, singing perhaps, and then nonetheless you are covered with the shines. So he's very attracted. Now he's generally attracted, as I said. So the living entity is generally attracted to the material energy, and then wants to go being attracted, and then the material energy reciprocating, making arrangement for that attraction to increase. God, material entity has two forces. One is to draw one in. One is to cover the living entity's original consciousness. Well, I am spirit soul, really, not of this world, I'm of the spiritual world. So Maya, with that original desire, that original attraction, Maya covers the real knowledge, original knowledge, and then uh, draws him in, draws him in. So this is to reciprocate living entity's own desire. I mean, covering and pulling in, pulling in. So these are the two categories of function of the modes of the two. So now once there's a general attraction, then the living entity, because of that attraction and because of that reciprocation, wants to go deeper, wants to get into more specific detail of how the different aspects of the material energy that he wants to do. He wants to explore the different acts, wants to see them, wants to smell them, wants to touch them, wants to hear them. So all the senses are used, wants to imagine about them. The mind is used, the intelligence, how to achieve these things. So all the senses, both gross and subtle, are employed, coming from the original attraction. Now he's got that and it's reciprocated. Then the living entity wants to go further in, get more into specific, get different aspects, travel around, see the world, see this one, see that one, do so many things. So this is just like the analogy given that Puranjana, the living entity, he is attracted to the face, beautiful face of the girl, the hair, the eyes, speaking, and so on and so forth. He's asking her to, he's shy, he's asking her to raise her face up so he can have a more clearer view. So the living entity is like that, wants to have a closer look at Maya. There's Maya in general. And so the living entity wants to have a closer look, wants to get right into it, get deeply into it. What's going on here? What's over here? It becomes very, very curious, very, very eager to go, explore, go into depth. There's an attraction and wants to go into depth about it. He's curious, traveling all over the world. Curious about this, curious about that. There's that old saying about the cat. Is it? Curiosity killed the cat. I remember one time at New Govardhan, it was just at New Govardhan farm, because we have a lot of snakes, everywhere. Some of them deadly snakes, poisonous. They bite you, you're dead. But there's a lot of snakes there. They reside in the roof. They reside all over. And one time when I was having lunch, saw the cat. The household cat was just up on the sink, like on the bench of the sink. And the window was open and just staring like transfixed, looking out the window. And I thought my pastor was proper. Just like a statue of the head out the window, and then we looked out, and then there was a snake out, just moving around very slowly, actually mesmerizing the cat. That's how they do it. They mesmerize the cat, and the cat had a curiosity that looking. The snake almost imperceptibly inches slowly closer and closer. Some of these are quite big snakes, pythons. Overnight to get quite big. Generally, it's the poisonous ones are not so much like that. They just bite. But the pythons, they're constricted. So they're getting closer and closer. And it's happened before. We've had to pull a few snakes off cats. So they get closer and real close and very slowly. And the cat's just looking at it and just mesmerized. And then it gets close enough to launch an attack. Rats real quick. So like that, so quick. So curiosity killed the cat. You're too curious for your own good. Too curious for your own good. So the cat could have been at the next moment just strangled by the snake, and then slowly they eat it. So to be curious, now I remember when I was a young brahmachari, one of the, we used to have brahmachari class, and one of the things that was learned that brahmachari, you should not be too curious about the world. I remember many years ago, there's brahmachari, you can read different instructions about brahmachari. Someone becomes grihasta, you read about how to be a good grihasta, how to be a good vanaprastha, how to be a good brahmachari. So we're reading all the different things. And one of them was, I always stuck out because I never kind of thought about it. So the brahmachari should not be too curious. So, generally the living entity being attracted wants to go deeper and in the curiosity, explore what's over here. And it's thinking there's some sort of, new enjoyment over it. Go to this country, I told the story yesterday. Backpack. Gave me a list of the 90 miles. Walk down the track and turn and walk 1 mile. no, no big deal. A whole bunch of sand for 90. And so that's the 90. So, people get all enamored, going here, going there. But it's quite troublesome. Anyone who's traveled around, quite troublesome. I mean, I'm always traveling. Many of our sannyasis, gurus, always traveling every few days, going another place, another place, another place. Some devotee come on. I wish I could travel around just like you're traveling around. It's not all that attracts us to travel around. It's quite taxing, quite just tiring. So many different things about it. There's so many cues you have to apply. It's quite, so people just do it just to look at different things. So the living entity is like that, and this is what equates to what is being described here. That Ranjan. Now he's getting even deeper in this verse. He's becoming impatient to want to enjoy. He's seen everything. He's heard, he's seen. Now he wants to go further, touch the girl. She's attracted to him. So Maya is reciprocating. Maya is reciprocating to the living entity's desire. And so on the deeper level, we understand this analogy in that way. Living entity becomes entangled more and more. And even superficially telling the story of Ranjana, attracted to the woman. This is the basic activity, the basic attraction in the mature world, and it goes on all species of life, male and female, sexual union. So this attraction is very, very strong. Prabhupada quotes this verse, Pumsasviyam, mitu ni pavamitam, and Payo mito ridaya grantim ahu, and ridaya granti, it's a knot. One becomes very attracted and attached, and the attachment is very strong. It's a very hard. Hridaya Granti means that the knot of the heart. It goes deep in the heart. This attachment goes deep in the heart. There's emotional attachment, all sorts of levels of attachment. And when one loses the partner, or indeed even other member of the family, one feels it in the heart because of that level of attachment. Hridaya Granti. And there's very strong male and female, female to male, male to female, very, very strong, very deep, and it can go over many lives. The man is very attracted to the woman, very attracted to the man. They live as husband and wife, perhaps a long time husband and wife, very attached. Quite often you read that the husband died and a few months later the wife died. She just becomes sicker and more sick, or the other way around. The wife dies and the husband dies. Sometimes they die at the same time. The story, husband and wife in the hospital together holding hands. Everyone's good. Well, in one sense, superficially, but there's nothing very pleasurable about having to leave the body and go dead. So this is kind of an illusion, but it's very strong. And who knows if the roles may be reversed in the next life. The roles may be reversed. The husband's very attached to the wife, wife's attached to him. He comes back as the husband the next life, and he comes back as a wife. And yesterday I was telling the story of Bilba Mangala Thakur, who formerly was a sannyasi in the Sankara, in the sect, Sankaracharya, with Mayavadi sannyasi. His name was Chitsukacharya. Chitsukacharya took initiation into the Sankaracharya sect. And, but then he met great devotees from the Rudra Sampradaya, Vishnu Swami, Vaishnava sect, and he actually converted from Sankara to Vishnu Swami, or Rudra Sampradaya, became a Vaishnava, was initiated by Somagiri and took the name Leela. So, it was a very interesting story. And just for those who weren't here, I'll just briefly summarize it, that he was very, very advanced, became very advanced devotee, and one did many festivals where he would have killed. One time there was a princess who died early at the age of 18. The king and the queen were there for the cremation. And she was the best kind of jewel. Finished, everyone left. So Lila Shuka, who saw all the jewelry, and he thought, what's the use of the jewelry on the dead body? I can take the jewelry and do big festivals. And so he went over, and he was taking some jewelry, but the voice came from the princess, don't do this, it's not right. If you want some money for your festival, go approach my father, the king, and I've hidden some treasure under my bed behind the board, and you can take that, use that, don't take the jewelry from my body. So I was telling the story yesterday. So then he did many festivals, but then the money ran out. And so he went back again, and still the jewelry was there, no one would dare touch it. He went back and he thought that he went and took a necklace, and her voice came again. You have done very wrong thing. I'm very angry with you. You should not have done this, taking my necklace. So I curse you to live an immoral life in the next life. So he came back. Next life, Brahman came. She came back as Chintamani. Chintamani, who was a prostitute. The princess came back as Chintamani. And he was very attached to her. And he hurried the Brahmin priest who was doing the Shraddha ceremony. Priest, hurry up, I've got something to do. So he went over there taking all sorts of risks. And she told him, if you have the same amount of attachment as you have for me, Krishna, great devotee. So that resonated very strongly. And he did, and he ended up going to Vrindavan and Krishna. My father, yes, a very wonderful story. He lived a long time, many hundreds of years, some say 700 years, in the area of Vrindavan. Krishna used to come and see him all the time to hear his recitation, his poetry, his songs, so on. And he manifests to him, in a vision to him, playing his flute. So a very wonderful story. But he changed everything around and became a great poet and very dear to Krishna. And so now, as far as material life is concerned, it is, as I said, Hridaya Granthi is a great knot, attachment, husband and wife to each other. And as I said, maybe in the next life the roles will be reversed, or sometimes someone comes, in Bali, I know that the Hindus there think that when you're born in a family, when you die, you come and take birth in the same family again. It keeps going on and on and on and on. So it may be the case. It may be the case where you take birth in the same family. Maybe the father becomes the son, the granddaughter, or something like that. Maybe the case, but not necessarily, because I remember one time in Melbourne, in our temple before the current builder, out the back, it was just a small little terrace, and at the back there was the previous owner obviously had concreted the backyard, small little. There was one solitary tree. The first time Prabhupada came, he actually stayed upstairs. He stayed upstairs, and he just noted in a class, he said, there's one tree out in that whole backyard, it's concrete, but there's one tree there. He said, I think that is the former owner. That is the former owner. He was so attached to this house that he came back, but he wasn't pious enough to come back to human. But he came back as a tree in the courtyard or the backyard of his own house because he was so attached. So it may be that someone is pious enough, they come back as a human being in the same family, or it may be that they're a mouse crawling around the house. Who's to say what species of life, if you've been very impious, it's very unlikely you're going to come back as a human. You're going to come back in a lower form of life. Well, you have to have some piety to come back as a human. And of course, to come back and take up spiritual life, then you would have had to have done some sort of spiritual activity. Now, normally, when there's family, husband and wife, very attached, this perpetuates the whole material existence. And it's just not only because when a girl gets married and a boy gets married, then they're not just marrying each other, they're marrying into whole families. There's the in-laws and on one side and the other side. Of course, and there has to be compatibility. That's why, especially in countries like India, they take great care in the marriages because not only should the boy and girl be compatible in nature, in education, there's all sorts of education and nature, position in society. Otherwise, these may be later on sort of tension and then argument, constant fighting and argument. So great consideration is taken between the boy and girl, but also what's taken into consideration, who are the families? Because, they'll be part of your life, like, your mother-in-law, your father-in-law, or your mother and father, grandmother, grandfather, what type of compatibility is there on that side? It's no good having the mother-in-law, father-in-law fighting with each other on that. That'll make life for the boy and girl very hellish also, isn't it? So all sorts of considerations. Those things are not done these days so much. Out of love, people get married out of love. But 6 months later, in the beginning I love you, and 6 months later I hate you. So these things are just mainly based on emotion, just emotion out of love. And interestingly enough, people complain about arranged marriages. I mean, that's forced when it's forced, but that's not the system. When the system was consideration, compatibility, the charts, and all these different considerations, it was not forced. If they didn't actually want, they didn't force. But it's become forced in many countries. Become forced for that type. But I read a statistic in America that now marriages in America last average 8 to 10 years, and I know in Australia it's about the same. I don't know. 8 first marriage, and then the second marriage is lasts less on average. There's always exceptions, but on average. And if it's a third marriage, that's less again. That's less again. So these are the statistics. Now, one of the statistics was interesting. I found that actually so-called arranged marriages have a longer longevity in America than just out of love marriage. On average, the longevity of that marriage is longer, even though people complain. But it's not. They're not. If it's forced, they're not doing it properly. So it has to be consideration. I know in some societies, in some Muslim countries like that, they can have more than one wife. But that also has to be on the permission of the person, not they just. And in the old Vedic times, someone who was very affluent, especially amongst the royal order or the Vaishya, they could have more than one wife, very affluent. But the permission had to be sought. First wife, she gave permission, all right. And if there's a third wife, then there's both first and second. So these things are there. Now, I remember one time I visited Brunei. Sultan of Brunei at one stage was the richest man in the world on oil. Now it's been overtaken by technically, but he one stage was the richest, and he had three queens, and each one of them had a palace. And we don't know because we drove past. This is the palace of this queen. This is number one queen. That's her palace. Number two queen. That's her palace. Actual palace. That's how rich he was. Actual palace. And so they were going to have. They wanted on that side, he would go over. Of course, Krishna, we know Krishna, he married 16,108. Well, he gave every one of them a palace. And not only that, now if if there was just one Krishna and he had to visit, and I worked this out one time, if there was just one Krishna, that means if he wanted to visit each queen, he could only get round to the original one he visited 50 years later. You do all the mathematics, and I did it one time. I think it works out to like 16,180 work out a day. You know, even going every day to visit each queen, it would take 50 years to get back to the first one. But nevertheless, what did Krishna do? Because he expanded himself to be with all the queens, so everyone was happy. Everyone was happy. Of course, the wife likes to be with the husband. And so Krishna did like that. Now, Prabhupada does comment in the purport to this concept. He said, generally, this attraction, this attachment is a hard knot in the heart. But in the cases of those who are devotees, especially very exalted devotees, he gives the example of Ramai, actually that the grihastha situation is very advantageous for Krishna consciousness, because both husband and wife are Krishna conscious and the kids are brought up in Krishna consciousness. So the whole situation is very, very nice. Because we know Srila Prabhupada encouraged this type of marriage where everyone's devoted. So obviously there's going to be affection there's going to be attachment there, but side by side, you're practicing your Krishna consciousness. Gradually, of course, your attraction to Krishna is even stronger. Just like we know in the story of when Brahma, took all the boys and the cows and hid them from Krishna, Krishna, and then he hid them in the cave. When he looked back again, they were all still there. All the cows, all the cowherd boys. So he was very struck with wonder. How is this? I just sneaked them off and put them in the cave. Krishna expanded himself, to all the cowherd boys, cows and the calves. And actually, it is said during that year that was like that, the parents of those boys, actually was Krishna, became even more attracted to their children than they did before. And they couldn't understand why. They couldn't understand why. They felt so much intense, increased affection for their own children than they did just previously. And the reason explained by the Acharya is actually because that Krishna. He gave them great mercy that Krishna became their son for that time. So everyone, unbeknownst to them, they but then they became very so intensely affectionate to the Supreme Personality, of course, later regularized. In a Krishna conscious situation, this is a very nice arrangement. But in general, in the material world, we have two levels here: a level of just superficial relationship in the material world, and then there's a Hridaya Granti, very hard and loving. Goes over many lives. Very, very, very. Prabhupada explains it. Very, very super difficult to break that knot. It's like layers of knot. If you put another knot over another knot, you can never undo it. Quite often we've experienced, we try to untie a knot. It's just so tight. What do you have to do? You just have to cut through. You have to cut through, break that knot. You can't actually untie it. It's so hard. You have to cut it. So in Krishna consciousness, that's what we do. We actually cut it. We cut through it through the yesterday's verse was called avidya and vidya. Oh no. There was avidya and vidya. Vidya means transcendent knowledge. Avidya means ignorance. So with the sword of knowledge, cut through the knot and just break that. So our attachment to Krishna is greater than even our attachment. That's not to say that we should be negligent and not have affection, and not have attachment, but always for a devotee the attachment rather than Krishna devotion is always a greater. And gradually, when one goes through the life, one gets older with time, the children have grown up, grown up and gone their own ways. Then there's retirement, and then husband and wife, they can go on pilgrimage. Gradually, even they come. It's totally dependent. We should see this very much so. India, where you see the elderly people, husband and wife, they're walking and they're going on the pilgrimage. This is a very good thing to do at the older husband and wife go. In the end, just before the end of life, total separation. Just focus on Krishna, husband, wife, go back home. So, Hare Krishna, thank you very much. Does anyone have any question or comment? I'll read this verse again. Narada Uvacha Itam Puranjanam Nari Yatmanam Yuvat Adyanandam Tatam Viram Santi Viram. Narada continued, my dear king, and Puranjana became so attracted and patient to touch the river and enjoy him. The girl also became attracted by his words and accepted his request by smiling. At this time, she was certainly attracted to the king. Any questions? Oh, yeah. Did what? He's I didn't. Someone else is feeding back there. To say again. Say again. Sorry, that someone was talking about divorce. Trying to get back to it. Divorce. Yeah. What about divorce? Discourage or encourages or that. So therefore, great consideration has to be there before you get married. Don't rush into it. You have to think about it very, very carefully. Otherwise, it may seem compatible in the beginning, but after some time, it becomes apparent completely incompatible. There's all sorts of problems, and then people separate. In one sense, you can understand, but it's unfortunate. And then the children are there, and separated. There's all sorts of complications. So before going into it, go cautiously because you want to stay in it your whole life and then help each other in Krishna consciousness. Certainly, with devotees, that's mentality. Fearless. But the devotee should. Two people in Kali Yuga, where there are two people, they'll be arguing. But always you have to try to put the Krishna consciousness first and foremost, and then that will. All right, thank you. Hare Krishna. One line. You find someone good. You find someone good. Yeah, astrologer. Oh yeah, is it? I was in the Trivandrum Padmanabha Swami, and anyway, before and I was walking, and with the devotees, they don't allow Western. We went in this one, and then the actual head astrologer for all the priests of the king happened to be there, and he walked with us. And he said, "Yeah, I do all the charts for all the." He's like a bigger chariot. I do all the priest charts. I do the king chart. The king is the patron of the temple. He's the I just kind of half joking. I said, "Well, mate, I'll get you to do my chart." He said, "Well, I don't do for the Swamis. I'll do it, but then Krishna can just change it." And so if it doesn't go according to what I say, I look very foolish. But normally I don't do anything. So, but certainly, yeah, you have to find an acharya, and there are some who, and you have to get a recommendation. I know Banama, some about devotees, then you can be more comfortable. Some are just out to make money, how good they are. So, be careful of that. But I think everyone, I think, going into Jai, all glories to Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Jai Go Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol.